Hello, everybody, and welcome to the podcast for Christians United for God and Country and the United States Prayer Force. I'm Steve D, along with Pastor Vince on a Saturday, a beautiful sunny Saturday here in New England, and we are really glad that you've tuned in today. Got a lot of interesting things to talk about, and for those of you who are tuning in for the first time, we just wanted to let you know why we're here. Our main goal is to get people together, Christians, to pray for America, to pray for this country. Our country is in moral decay. Our country is in desperate situations in just about every aspect of government that you could even think about. And we tend to believe that the only real way to save America is not through some politician or somebody like that. It's by prayer. And we believe in the power of prayer. We believe God has a plan for this country. At least we sure hope he does. Whatever God's plan is, that's what we want to have happen. We want to be and operating according to God's will. So that's why we're here, and we're glad you've joined us. And we do have a prayer list that we could send you if you send us an email. Look there at the bottom of your screen, christiansunited50@gmail.com. We'll send you the prayer list. Join with us in these prayers. We're praying for revival here in America. We're praying for godly men and women to run for public office, to get into government positions where they can make good decisions for moral belief, just good people that want a great country like America, has been throughout its history. And we, like I say, every time we say that America has been a great country, I always have to make the disclaimer that we know America is not perfect. We know America has some scars in its history, and who doesn't? So, pray with us. Pray for America. Pastor, I'm going to talk about a couple of things, and I've got one primary question to pose today here on the podcast, and we're going to talk about this. Is Joe Biden and his administration a scam on America? Now, I always like to say that, we're doing this podcast, and we're trying not to be a political broadcast. We're not here to try to tell you who to vote for. We're really not. We're trying to make observations. We're trying to take a look at America, make observations. What's going on here? Using common sense, using observational skills. If you're thinking clearly, what's really going on in this country? And if you do that, you'll come to some really important conclusions. The first one I'd like to touch on is the following: is Bidenomics working as they claim? Now, the Biden administration, Joe Biden, and his White House press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre, they will go on television and they will say clearly that Bidenomics is working, that having this plan that Biden has put together from the bottom up and from the middle up and the middle out, or whatever crazy conclusion he's come to, he says that Bidenomics is working. So let's take a look at some things here. What is the U.S. core inflation rate today? The U.S. core inflation rate right now is at 3.75%. Compare that to 3.86% last month and 5.54% last year during the Biden administration. This is higher than the long-term average of 3.68%. And if you're wondering, the core U.S. inflation rate is one of the most important metrics that's used to determine the status of our economy. Inflation is also used by the U.S. Federal Reserve to gauge the health of the economy. How does inflation affect the average person? We talk about inflation all the time. It's a term. We know that it's got to be bad. But if you ever stop and think of what it really means, it means that most people will feel the effects of cost of living increases in their daily lives. Rising prices will hit the middle class very hard, but they'll hit the lower paid classes even harder. Higher food prices, gasoline, utility costs mean less money for savings and less for discretionary spending. That's what inflation is all about. So compare this with what inflation was like during Donald Trump's presidency. The average yearly inflation rate under President Donald Trump was, can you guess? 1.9%. And the inflation rate remained low during Trump's presidency. Okay, so Trump at 1.9% inflation and Biden at 3.75 right now.
Double.
Yeah, double. And if you go back last year, it was 5.54, way more than double. So is Bidenomics working? Ask yourselves that question. Let's make some observations. What do you think? Is Bidenomics working, or is Joe Biden and his administration a scam on America? They will claim that Bidenomics is working. We know by plain observation that it's not. Let's move on to another topic real quick. The border crisis. What's going on at the border? We've heard repeated claims throughout the past couple of years that the border is closed and that the government has it under control. We've heard from Biden and Karine Jean-Pierre, the White House press secretary, and we've heard from Secretary of Homeland Security Alejandro Mayorkas many times, maybe the worst of all, that the border is closed and the government has it under control. Let's use our observational skills, Pastor, and some common sense analysis here. And I think if we do, we will prove that it's false. Thousands and thousands of people crossing the border daily. Millions to date have entered. Does that sound like a closed border to a rationally thinking human being? Does that sound like a common sense observation? Well, last month, Mayorkas was impeached by the House of Representatives for, handling the border irresponsibly and lying about it. Articles are going to be sent to the Senate to see if they'll ratify this. Now, the Senate probably won't, because the Senate majority is Democrat right now. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer has been critical of the attempt to impeach Mayorkas, and it's expected that he will move to dismiss any trial that should try to come up to have Mayorkas impeached. Republicans in the Senate are urging him to proceed with a trial before the American public. Make it a public trial, and let's get this thing, taken care of. Now, 61% of Americans say they view illegal immigration as a very serious problem, with another 23% saying it is somewhat serious, compared with just 15% who believe the issue is not too serious or not too serious at all. So the question is, in regards to the southern border, has the southern border ever been closed since Joe Biden took office, as they claim? Well, we've made the observations, we've looked at the situation, we have millions of illegal immigrants, and we do have what the left-wing media would say is really just kind of like a made-up narrative. We have immigration crime. We have crimes being committed by illegal immigrants. And Pastor, I know you have a couple of those to talk about in your informational session today. That's it. I just wanted to round out today's discussion about Joe Biden and how we look at his administration. There's no way to be apolitical in this discussion. I mean, if you're voting for Joe Biden, it's a possibility that you're being scammed. If you're believing what they're saying, if you're believing that Bidenomics is working, if you're believing that the southern border is under control, you've been scammed. And would love to hear from you. If you don't agree with that, send us an email at christiansunited50.com. christiansunited50@gmail.com. And we'd love to hear your opinions on that. That's what I had to say today, Pastor. What do you got for us?
Well, in regard to what you were just speaking about, in regard to the open border and the crimes that are being committed regarding these illegal aliens who have crossed the border,
right?
Just more than a week ago, there was an individual by the name of Brandon Ortiz, and I'm going to say his name. It's -Vite, so I guess you're pronouncing it Vite. He was a 25-year-old Mexican man. He was arraigned in Kent County, Michigan, on the charges of felony murder, open murder, carjacking, carrying a concealed weapon, and a felony firearm. And he's accused of killing a 25-year-old American woman, Ruby Garcia of Grand Rapids, Michigan. And now it seems that these two were romantically involved, and then they were in a car together. And in regarding to an argument that they had, Ortiz Vite pulls out his gun, a 9mm, and Ruby Garcia is sitting in the driver's seat, and he shoots her. He doesn't believe that she's dead, so he gets out of the car, passenger side, walks over to the driver's side, and I believe he shoots her again more than once.
Mm-hmm.
Then he drives off and dumps her body on the side of the road. And she ultimately was found. He ultimately turned himself into the police. This happened about a week ago, more Friday. Okay. And maybe on Friday, on March 22nd, he turned himself to the police on March the 24th. But in regard to his history, he entered the United States illegally, all right, in the year 2017, and he had a few arrests. Ultimately, he was arrested again, and in August of 2020, he was deported back to Mexico. That's where he is from. And he again, sometime after that, nobody knows exactly when, but it had to be one of those crossings where he got across with nobody knowing that he came across,
Right?
Because he had already been deported. ICE had his records, and so they didn't catch him at the border and were able to ship him out again. And so he illegally crossed into this country, and in sometime after he was deported in August of 2020, he was in Michigan now for these last 4 years, and he ends up, killing this innocent woman. And so the question arises: if the border is closed, and it's not, and that's one of the biggest farces, all right, that has ever been told. And how many innocent American citizens are going to have to suffer, crimes committed against them even to the extent of murder before somebody says stop? That's enough,
Right?
And enough of this nonsense. You had Lake and Riley. There was another girl we've spoken about, a 16-year-old girl who was killed in her own apartment in Texas. You have this Ruby Garcia. And, these people have families. And they're young people. And now their siblings, their mom, their dad, their grandparents, their loved ones, all they have in regard to that loved one who perished, who should not have died, all right, is a picture placed on a mantle or on a table in a house because something happened that should not have happened because the government didn't do what they were supposed to do: protect the American citizens.
And that's the issue. The issue is not just illegal immigration. It's law and order in this
Yes.
country. We have attorneys general, we have district attorneys, and they won't prosecute the criminals. They somehow feel that criminals have human rights that remain after they commit the most heinous crimes. I'm kind of the opinion, Lord, when I pray about this thing, I say, Lord, we need law and order in this country. But my opinion is that when somebody commits a crime of murder, their rights are pretty much wiped out, except for due process of law. They have a right to a fair trial because everybody is innocent until proven guilty. But all the other rights are gone. You just don't have them. You've given them up. You've taken somebody's life. And if it's ever proven that you didn't take somebody's life, then fine, go free. But,
And here's another one in regard to what we're just talking about, law and order. As probably most of the country knows, on Monday of this past week, New York City police officer Jonathan Diller was killed while conducting just a routine traffic stop in Queens, New York. The accused killer of Officer Diller was a 34-year-old, not an illegal. Okay, he's an American. All right, but this goes to that thing: crime, law, and order. It's not being done in regard to the illegal immigrants or aliens that are coming across the border.
Right.
It's not even done in regard to American citizens.
Did this guy have a rap sheet?
Did this guy have a rap sheet?
Yeah.
He had been arrested previously. He's 34 years old. He had previously been arrested 21 times. Okay. 9 of those arrests were felony arrests. One of those 9 was for attempted murder. Okay. And this guy's just driving around. I believe that, there was some issue with where the car was parked. And so Officer Diller and the other officer that was with him get out of their car. Officer Diller goes to the passenger side where, this guy's name was Guy Rivera. And he's telling Rivera ultimately that he needs to get out of the car. Rivera refuses to get out of the car. And so somehow the window goes down, the door gets open, and Officer Diller is going to have to physically take this individual out of the car. And when he goes to bring him out of the car, pull him out of the car. Rivera pulls out a gun, and now Officer Diller had a bulletproof vest on.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Okay,
Yeah.
but he gets shot underneath the vest, and even after he was shot,
Yes.
all right, a struggle ensued, and ultimately this man was subdued and detained. But the other man who was driving the car also was arrested, and he only had 15 prior arrests. When they ultimately, I think they took this individual Rivera to Rikers Island, where he was going to be temporarily incarcerated, and they were doing their, stripping him down to make sure he had nothing dangerous.
Right.
They found out that he had a shiv. You know what a shiv is? It's like a makeshift knife.
Yes.
All right. So he had a shiv shoved up his butt, and they found this shiv that he had pushed up his butt, planning on, if he ever got arrested, that he would be prepared to do something illegal while he was incarcerated, but they found that on him.
Right.
And so here you are, you're getting ready for the morning, go off to work or whatever you're going to do. And, you get dressed, you put your wallet in your back pocket, you put your change in your pocket, whatever it is you need.
Mhm.
Okay. And you put your shiv up your butt. Okay. Right. Because you're intending to do something, that's criminal.
Yeah.
And so this man has been arrested. His funeral, today is March the 30th. His funeral may even be taking place right now. As probably most of you heard, President Trump, on his own, went to the wake. The wake was held 2 days, Thursday and Friday. On Thursday, President Trump went there. He had a 10-minute private, conversation with Officer Diller's wife, Stephanie. When he was going to leave, after he had been there, after he talked to officers and had been there for a while, probably at least, 45 minutes or longer, he was going to leave, and Officer Diller's mother asked him for a hug, and he embraced her, and then he and his entourage left. The following day, yesterday, Governor Kathy Hochul went to the house, or to the, went to the,
It was a
the
funeral
wake,
parlor, I believe.
the
Right?
wake, yes, excuse
Yeah.
me, at the funeral parlor.
Mhm.
And she seemed to have a 10-minute heated conversation with Officer Diller's wife, Stephanie. And then she was asked to leave the premises. They did not want her there because, in essence, because of the district attorney, all right, in New York City, Alvin Bragg, because of Kathy Hochul, the governor, and judges and others.
Soft on crime.
Soft on crime. These criminals are allowed out. And the result is, again, I know that every day when an officer goes out, in essence, he is putting his life on the line, so to speak. But here's an officer who was killed, who should not have been killed, because the man who killed him should have been incarcerated and put in jail.
And he should not have had a weapon. They let him out, but he had a weapon too.
Well, the same thing.
It's
Just think about this in regard to that, that other guy that we're talking about, Ortiz Vite. All right. He was in possession of a 9mm handgun.
Right.
All right. He's an illegal alien. Where did he get, that weapon? Was not.
There must be a black market for guns, obviously.
Certainly.
Yeah, sure.
But my point is, okay, here in America, you have politicians who want to take away law-abiding citizens' right to have an arm,
right.
All right, to bear arms,
yeah.
and to possess, a weapon, even for their own self-defense. Sure. And yet, you have illegals who have these weapons.
Sure.
Okay. And I'm sure the weapon that, if you have a rap sheet of 21 arrests, 9 felonies, and 1 for attempted murder, the weapon that you killed, all right, Officer Diller with, was not legally purchased.
Someone like that shouldn't be on the streets. Attempted murder and 21 arrests for who knows what, assault, all kinds of problems.
All right, and getting back to we're going to talk about this in a moment here. What the president has, I won't mention it now. I'll wait till we make a reference to this. What President Biden has declared.
Oh boy!
All right,
yeah.
tomorrow as being, all right. You and I
stick around for that, folks. Don't go away.
Are going to celebrate Resurrection Sunday, all right, or what most people refer to as Easter Sunday, when we remember and celebrate the resurrection of our Savior, the Lord Jesus Christ,
right,
as he triumphantly walked out of the tomb, triumph over death and sin and the devil.
Yeah.
But President Biden has designated tomorrow. Now he knows what tomorrow is.
Oh yeah, he's a good
All right.
Catholic, right?
Oh yeah, he's a good Catholic.
Uh-huh.
He's designated tomorrow, March the 31st, as Transgender Day of Visibility. Transgender Day of Visibility.
If it wasn't so funny, I'd start crying.
Yeah.
I
Now
swear.
here's a
This is-
quote. Here's a quote from the White House. On Transgender Day of Visibility, we honor the extraordinary courage and contributions of transgender Americans and reaffirm our nation's commitment for a more perfect union. All right, now I might be missing something.
No, I think we are.
Okay, in
Yeah.
regard to transgenders and those who are transgender, their courage.
What
and,
a contribution that they made.
and you know, their commitment to America. It says, but anyways, he says, in regard to our nation's commitment for a more perfect union where all people are created equal and treated equally throughout their lives. Today, this is still going on with the quote, we send a message to all transgender Americans. You are loved. You are heard. You are understood. All right. You belong. You are America. And my entire administration and I have your back.
Right.
Therefore, I, Joseph R. Biden Jr., President of the United States of America, by virtue of the authority vested in me by the Constitution of the United States, do hereby proclaim March 31st, 2024 as Transgender Day of Visibility.
Right.
Now, here's the hypocrisy that we were, have been talking about in regard to this individual who wants to be, who is the president supposedly of the United States. But anyways, a few weeks ago, a transgender teenager, all right, 15 years of age, I believe in the state of Texas, committed suicide. Now, I don't know. All I heard in regard to the news was this was a transgender individual. I don't know if it was a boy transgendering to become a female,
Doesn't
or
matter.
a female transgendering to become a male.
Right.
But this transgender teenager committed suicide. President Biden personally contacted this family and expressed his condolences to them.
Which is not a bad thing.
Hey, listen, I have no problem
Not
with
a
that.
bad thing.
Okay.
However,
I'm not for transgenderism and all that nonsense. However, this family suffered a loss of a loved one.
sure.
Okay. And in regard to expressing your condolences, I have no issue with that,
No.
because just like these other people that we talked about, for the rest of their lives, these family members, siblings, dad, mom, grandparents, loved ones, are going to have to just, all they have now in regard to that person is a picture and a memory. So I'm not bashing that.
No.
This is what I'm against, and this is what makes me angry. All right. In regard to Officer Diller, the mayor of New York, Eric Adams, showed up at the wake, and he expressed, because President Biden was also in New York these last couple of days. And so he sends a message to the Diller family expressing his condolences. You can call the family of a transgender, individual who commits suicide and personally express your condolences. All right. But yet you have a man who was a police officer who had, his livelihood was, protecting the citizens of New York.
Mhm.
And he is described by his fellow
Yes,
police
I know it.
officers as being a cop's cop. All right. And you don't have the decency to either go there,
No.
all right, like President Trump did,
Yeah.
all right, or have the decency to personally call that 31-year-old police officer's widow and express your condolences and your sympathies to her and her family. That is absolutely outrageous.
It's an abomination. It's horrible. And Biden was in New York apparently for a fundraiser
Yes.
that he held with Barack Obama and Bill
Mhm.
Clinton, with a lot of very wealthy Democrats trying to raise money for his political campaign. But he couldn't spend 10 minutes to visit the family of the slain police officer.
Mhm.
That to me is an outrage, and it's unacceptable. I don't consider that to be a very presidential decision
No.
made by him.
Not at all. Not at all. Here's another thing that we can talk about for a moment. Getting back to some of this transgender ideology and all the wickedness that goes along with
Right.
the LGBTQ alphabet crowd. This is taking place up in Canada. All right. The Trudeau government has introduced a bill that could put Christians in prison for quoting the Bible or expressing traditional faith-based opinions in regard to what the Canadian government deems a promotion of hatred or even anti-Semitism. And this bill, which is C-367, was posted, or excuse me, purported to amend the criminal code, which will redefine the boundaries of free speech and criminalizing public Bible reading, prayers, and other expressions of Christian teachings. And the move by the Trudeau Liberal government is seen as an attempt to criminalize Christianity and traditional values under the pretense of undefined hate speech.
Right.
All right. So if you were to get on the street and just preach the truth of Scripture, all right, and call homosexuality a sin or anything else along those lines, that what the Bible teaches as truth, if this bill passes in Canada, you could be arrested and thrown in jail. Now, here's what I want you to realize. All right. If we allow the liberals, all right, who are in charge of our government right now, to continue on with another 4 years in government, then what you see happening in Canada, they're just a step ahead of us. They're just one step ahead of us. And what goes on up there would ultimately make its way down here. And you've already seen it to some degree. Okay, you can get on the internet and you can see individuals who have been arrested because they were just on a street corner in the United States. All right, and just at some LGBTQ rally day or so forth or so on, just preaching or reading the Bible out loud, and the police came along and arrested them. All right. Or you have people, we've talked about this a couple of times, where once in Pennsylvania, another time in Tennessee, where you had Christians peacefully protesting at abortion clinics and they got arrested. All right. And so I'm telling you, if this country doesn't get turned around, it's going to become criminal, all right, to preach the Bible, quote the Bible, and, have any kind of, they'll let you keep it in your church, but you bring it outside the church, they're going to deem it as hate speech and wickedness.
Well, this is the persecution that the Bible said Christians would face in the latter days. Is that correct? And we spoke about it on the last podcast. It's in the scriptures. I think 2 Timothy speaks about that persecution. But I want to say this, Pastor, before you continue, and that is that a lot of people would like to say Christians are filled up with hatred. We hate LGBTQ people. We hate homosexuals. That's false. It's not true. We don't hate them. We don't hate any people, whether they disagree with us or agree with us or not. We hate criminals that commit crimes. We hate sin. God hates sin. And our country and our world has lost sight of what sin is and what's moral and what's immoral in life. We've lost sight of it. And so as Christians, we're holding on to that vision of what's truly moral and what's truly right. And so we will criticize LGBTQ people for what they're practicing, but we don't hate them. We're hoping that they will come to an awakening of the truth of the gospel, that they will get saved and they will realize that they're on a bad path. It's not going to end well. That's technically love. Tough love, maybe, yeah, but that's love. We love people. Jesus loved people. Jesus loved people that were sick, people that were evil, and he loved them. He criticized them, though. He went after the Pharisees and the Sadducees for their attitudes, and he was harsh about it, and he was very critical about it. That's where we come from. It's not about hatred. Pastor, continue.
One more thing before we bring this all to a conclusion. On Monday this past week, the United States Security Council passed a 14-0 resolution calling for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. Now, the thing that was unusual about this, in regard to this resolution, the United States has, since its very beginning, in regard to the nation of Israel, stood with Israel. And when these types of resolutions would be presented, all right, the United States, which is on the Security Council, would veto it. they'd be the only one probably to veto it, but they would veto it. However, in regard to this resolution, as I said, which passed 14-0, all right, the United States abstained from voting. Now, this resolution, which calls for immediate ceasefire, has nothing to say, all right, in regard to, condemning Hamas
Right.
and their killings of Jews, how they invaded. They went beyond the Gaza Strip. They invaded, Israel. They killed innocent children. They raped women and killed women and so forth and so on. No condemnation in regard to anything that, Hamas did. However, calling for an immediate ceasefire, and the United States hypocritically kept their mouths shut and did not say a word. And again, all right, you talk about the scam. This is the Biden administration scam, because on Super Tuesday, which took place last month, or this month, excuse me, at the beginning of the month, because you had all these Muslim American voters who in the Democratic primary, all right, instead of voting for Joe Biden, in actuality, in most places, he was the only one on the candidate or anyone knew about.
Mhm.
Instead of voting for him as their Democratic nominee, they voted uncommitted. And the Biden administration realizes that in some place, Michigan being one of those places, that's where one of the largest, Muslim populations in America is, and also in Minnesota, that there's the possibility, more so in Michigan probably than Minnesota, that there's the possibility that that state, which in the last election voted blue in favor of Biden, could possibly vote red, all right, in regard to Donald Trump. And so in order to gain a little, I don't know if the word is the right word, sympathy, or, having those Muslim American voters realize that they're not so pro-Israel. Okay,
They are doing that. They're riding
doing
the
that.
fence.
Yeah, they're riding the fence in order to curry favor
For political reasons.
All right,
yeah,
for political reasons. Which is this? Listen, if something is right, it's right, and if something is wrong, it's wrong. And you don't make a decision based on the political ramifications if it's right or if it's wrong.
Right.
All right. You do it because it's right or because it's wrong. You don't do it because of political reasons so that you can gain favor and stay in power.
Yeah.
All right. You do it because this is right and I'm voting for it because it's right. I'm voting against this, or I'm doing this because it's wrong. And these people have no moral compass.
Well, there's another issue, Pastor, also, and that is the folks who are out there protesting for freedom for the Palestinians. What they're claiming is that Israel is committing a genocide, which is a false narrative. They're not committing a genocide. They have no intention of committing genocide, of wiping out the Palestinians. That's not what's happening. Israel is going after Hamas. Hamas has declared themselves to be an enemy of Israel. Mm-hmm. Hamas has declared themselves, what they really want to accomplish is the elimination of Israel. Therefore, Israel is coming after Hamas, saying, no, you're not going to eliminate us. We're going to eliminate you. But they're not committing genocide against Palestinians. That's false. Right. Correct?
Well, they want to say in what they're claiming is that in Israel's endeavor to get those who are involved with Hamas, all right, that they are killing innocent Palestinians.
It happens.
Okay. But
unfortunately, it's horrible. Yes.
But even, everything that the news media or the United Nations is using as, what they claim are the, what is actually happening in regard to death totals and so forth and so on, they're getting those numbers from Hamas. And if Hamas is telling you something, you can guarantee that it's not true. It's a lie. It's fabricated, and it's not the real truth.
Right.
So, you had, even while President Biden and President Clinton, former President Obama were in New York City, all right, having their fundraiser for the Biden campaign, all right, you had pro-Palestinian people even got inside. A couple had to be carried out. They got inside. They got inside where this fundraisers were taking place, and there was a woman, I think, or a couple of women. They were screaming and shouting. They had to be taken out, and you had a bunch of them outside that were protesting in regard to that.
what's going on in Israel is a disaster. It's horrible. A ceasefire is something that would really be a blessing if it could happen. But Israel has to protect itself against an enemy, a sworn enemy that is trying to wipe them off the face of the earth. I mean, I don't see how people can't see
Can
it
I
that
just
way.
interject something right here real
You
quickly?
can, sure.
Would to God we had some politicians in America like Benjamin Netanyahu.
Well, sure. Yeah, that's a big debate going there, but no, he's standing up for his country. He's putting Israel first, as Donald Trump wants to put America first. Now, I also want to say this: we're not coming to you saying you got to vote for Donald Trump. We're not coming to you as MAGA extremists. We're not coming to you from a political point of view at all. We're coming to you from the perspective of a Christian with a biblical foundation for morals and for living life.
No, let me just interject this.
Okay.
You have another person that's going to be running. He's running for president, whether he gets on all the state ballots
Right.
is to be seen, Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
Sure.
All right. And I'll say this about Robert F. Kennedy. All right. I don't agree with all his policies. All right. There's some things that he says, like in regard to the vaccinations and so forth, that I would agree with. I read his book in regard to vaccinations and COVID and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
But I'm telling you this. All right. I believe that Robert Kennedy, in regard to what he believes, he truly believes.
Mhm.
Okay. If he's gonna tell you something, he really believes in what he's telling you. He's not one of these individuals who will flip-flop in regard to. And so if you wanted to say I support him, well, you know what? I can respect you.
Sure.
I might not agree with everything I said that Robert Kennedy stands for. He has a very liberal woman who he is having for his vice presidential,
yes.
candidate. But I believe he's an honest, straightforward man.
Yeah.
And he's going to tell you what he truly believes.
Yeah. Well, we're running out of time here, Pastor. We wanted to just thank everybody for tuning in today. And like I said, we're not coming from a perspective of hatred, regardless of who we're talking about. Christians, true Christians, do not hate. The Bible has certain standards we abide by, and we're encouraging people to abide by them as well. If you choose not to, that's your choice.
Well,
You have freedom of choice to do that.
You know what? We can hate.
Well, hate what?
The Bible says in the New Testament, abhor in Romans, abhor that which is evil.
Correct.
So if it's evil, we can hate it.
We can hate evil. Yes. Well, understood. I agree with you there. But I'm saying we're not hating people. We're not coming against people. Don't accuse us of that, because you're not going to get very far with that. It's junk. It's not going to happen. Hey, thanks for tuning in today. Go to the website and join the United States Prayer Force. We hope you'll do so. It's ChristiansUnited50.com. And if you are so inclined and you can do so, we would appreciate a small donation. Christians United, P.O. Box 2275 in Stamford, Connecticut, 06906. Or go to the website, like I said, ChristiansUnited50.com. Visit the donate page. Thank you so much to all of you out there who have donated. Keep it on the air. Every penny you send will be used honestly and for the purposes of sharing the gospel and sharing a Pray for America message. Pastor, last words before we sign off here.
Well, as we usually say, our first resource is prayer. And because of the wickedness and ungodliness that's going on, not only in the world, but in our own country, Christians need to pray as never before. Please unite with us in prayer.
Thanks for watching. Join us again next week.